Well, let me ask you a quick question on a 1 to 10. To what extent is America's war in Iraq connected to our special relationship to the State of Israel?
Well, I think there probably was some connection. The neoconservatives in the administration and outside the administration, I think one of their hidden goals of invading Iraq was to eliminate an enemy of Israel. If you remember, in 1981, the Israelis bombed the Osirik reactor in Iraq, and of course we protested that at the time. So now we're sort of up to the same thing, but our policy, is, as I mentioned, is sometimes inconsistent.
Well, to say the least, given the fact that, and this is one of this is the elephant in the room again, Israel's astounding arsenal of nuclear weapons, which were introduced to the Middle East before anyone else, and has probably inspired other countries to try to follow suit. Don't you think that America's inability, and even the complicity of our news media, to raise that as an issue towards creating some sort of regional peace is a stumbling block that's going to be with us until we look at that as well?
Well, of course, we talk about countries getting weapons of mass destruction with horror, but of course there's a lot of weapons of mass destruction, a lot of countries in the Middle East that have them, and Israel is one of them. It has about 200 nuclear warheads.
Israel is the only nuclear power in the Middle East.
Right, exactly.
And
so you're right, actually that's very glossed over a lot of the time.
Well, I've got a big question for you. How would U.S. foreign policy be different if there was no oil in the Middle East?
Well, I think that we would still be interested in it because of Israel.
So basically Israel outside of oil, and perhaps above and beyond our oil interests, is the reason that we have such a aggressive military posture there?
Well, I think oil and Israel are the two major issues, and they pull in opposite directions, because if we want the oil, the Arabs have the oil, and of course the Arabs don't like the Israelis. And so the Israelis' policy is more of a domestic policy than a foreign policy.
Is it due because of the cloud of that ethnic lobby?
Well, it's not only the ethnic lobby; it's also the fundamentalist Christians, which have far greater numbers.
Yeah, but they've gotten on board rather recently. I don't think they were driving this policy 10 years ago or
right.
15.
It used to be that the Republicans were more pro-Arab than they are now, but after Ronald Reagan and the fundamentalist Christians got on board with Israel, ever since Ronald Reagan, Republicans have been even more supportive of Israel than the Democrats.
What about the assertion that there's a conspiracy by the Bechtel and Halliburton and Cheney, all these, I guess, these people that want to, score a lot of money? Is there any substance to that being a driving force of U.S. foreign policy all these decades, or is that just left-wing nuttiness?
I think it's probably overstated. Certainly people like to get contracts, and they certainly should have opened those contracts to international bidding, but I don't think there's a vast conspiracy. My own view is that they did it for a demonstration effect, and also perhaps because they knew they were going to lose Saudi bases.
Well, you've almost already answered this question by the previous one. Let me ask you about how would U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East be different if there was no Jewish state in the Middle East?
Well, if there were no oil, and if there were no Jewish...
No, there was still oil there, but there was no Jewish state.
Well, I think we would still be interested because of the oil. If both of those factors went away, the Middle East wouldn't be important. Now, I think the oil is overstated because, frankly, those countries have to sell that oil more than we have to buy it.